The Middle East, a pivotal region between continents, has been undergoing an unprecedented geopolitical transformation for more than a decade. From the Arab Spring in 2011 to the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas conflict in 2023, the region has witnessed the collapse of powers, the reshaping of alliances, and the intensification of age-old rivalries. These upheavals, far from being isolated episodes, are part of a complex dynamic where sectarian rivalries, national ambitions, and the global strategies of major powers are intertwined. Today, as Saudi Arabia asserts itself as a key player, the United States shifts its stance to reduce direct involvement, and Israel navigates between security and diplomacy. The region stands at a crossroads. American President Donald Trump made a historic visit, laying the foundations for a new regional order. This video aims to analyze and decipher the forces at play, the strategies of the main actors, as well as the plausible scenarios that will shape the future of a rapidly changing Middle East. As personal data protection becomes a major concern, Incogni emerges as a key solution to increasing risks from data brokers. These companies gather and sell your personal data, names, addresses, phone numbers, work history, and more, to third parties without your knowledge. This exploitation exposes you to threats like identity theft, scams, harassment, and fraud. Luckily, Incogni automates the fight against this spread. On your behalf, the service contacts hundreds of data brokers to demand the deletion of your data, relying on strict legal frameworks like the GDPR or the CCPA. This process isn't just one time. Incogni repeatedly requests and follows up to keep your information from reappearing. For enhanced protection, the custom removals feature allows you to manually target sites that aren't covered by automation. Notably, people search sites publish detailed profiles, increasing user risk, include multiple addresses, emails, and phone numbers to improve removal effectiveness. This automated and scalable system significantly reduces the time and the work needed to protect your privacy while giving you full transparency with a personalized dashboard showing your request progress. Protecting your data preserves your security and freedom in a context where personal information is a strategic issue. Plus, get up to 60 off an annual Incogni subscription with the link in the description or code Terabellum. The Middle East has always been a crossroads of rivalries and shifting alliances shaped by local issues and external influences. The alliance sealed in 1945 between Roosevelt and King Abdulaziz laid the foundations of a strategic partnership between Washington and Riyadh based on the kingdom's security in exchange for privileged access to oil. This partnership survived the Cold War, the oil shocks, the Iranian Revolution of '79, the rise of Arab nationalism, the Gulf Wars, and the emergence of Iran as a regional power. After the collapse of the USSR in '91, the United States consolidated their position, but the September 11, 2001 attacks and the wars that followed revealed the limits of American military engagement. The Arab Spring of 2011, the rise of Turkey, and the expansion of Iranian influence in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen have further complicated the situation. For the past decade, American strategy has aimed to reduce direct exposure to regional risks while maintaining the ability to influence through local partners. This refocusing accelerated under the Obama, Trump, and then Biden administrations with some differences in their approaches. But one constant remains: the desire to defend, delegating crisis management to regional allies while continuing to play the role of arbiter and guarantor of Israel's security. Trump does not revolutionize American strategy, but makes sure it continues effectively. Under the leadership of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia has begun a profound transformation, with the Vision 2030 plan aiming to diversify its economy, reduce its dependence on oil, modernize society, and strengthen its diplomatic influence. In 2024, despite a 4.5% contraction in oil activity, the kingdom's overall growth reached 1.3%, driven by a 4.6% increase in non-oil sectors. The kingdom's GDP amounts to $1.08 trillion, the highest in the Arab world, with growth forecasts of 3.3% for 2025. Supported by investments in technology, aerospace, energy, and infrastructure, Riyadh has increased its military spending to $75.8 billion in 2024, which is 3.1% of global defense spending, with a strong focus on acquiring and producing domestically. The historic agreement of May 2025 with the United States worth $600 billion, including $145 billion dedicated to defense, illustrates Saudi Arabia's determination to establish itself as a key player, capable of competing with Turkey, Israel, and, to a lesser extent, Iran. Diplomatically, Saudi Arabia has asserted itself on several fronts in recent years: rapprochement with Turkey, Syria's reintegration into the Arab League, involvement in the Lebanese crisis, and a leading role in discussions on normalization with Israel. Riyadh has also suspended its financial support to Lebanon as long as Hezbollah, an Iranian ally, maintains dominant influence there, thus contributing to the weakening of the group. For the first time, the kingdom is no longer just a financial backer, but a major political player in the construction of a new regional order. However, despite these ambitions, Saudi Arabia remains the weakest of the major regional players in terms of power projection. These military capabilities, although modernized, remain dependent on American support, Western expertise, and foreign technicians or contractors. Riyadh also has to deal with divergent interests within the Arab world, such as its rivalry with Turkey and the need not to appear as a mere proxy for the United States. The kingdom must also be careful not to lose the legitimacy it derives from the Palestinian cause, a cause that Turkey could very well claim for itself. Trump's visit to Riyadh in May 2025 is the first stop on his international trip, and was marked by the signing of unprecedented economic and military agreements, as well as a symbolic meeting with the new Syrian leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa. This gesture illustrates the American desire to reintegrate Syria into a new regional architecture, balancing Turkish, Saudi, and Israeli influences. This triumvirate is expected to maintain a balance to stabilize the Middle East while containing Iran, which has been a central theme of American geopolitics since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. The American strategy has aimed for decades to weaken Tehran through economic sanctions, support for regional adversaries, and various operations. Iran's regional influence has declined due to political transition, severe economic crisis with about 50% inflation, diplomatic isolation, and setbacks in Syria and Lebanon. These blows include around 50% inflation, diplomatic isolation, and also loss of ground. Dealt to Iran, they would push it to acquire a nuclear weapon, which has opened the door to a negotiation process that was mentioned in a previous video. It is Turkey that has replaced Iran as the dominant player in Syria, while Saudi Arabia is establishing itself as a financial and political counterweight. That's where the American strategy changed. It reached its limits, because the desire to reduce American resources allocated to the Middle East clashes with the need to maintain stability among these powers. A complete withdrawal even seems illusory, given how fragile the balance is and how high the risks of escalation are. Washington must arbitrate between supporting Israel, putting pressure on Iran, managing the Turkish-Saudi rivalry, the Turkish-Israeli rivalry, and preventing a widespread conflagration. The regional architecture, therefore, remains largely dependent on the American security umbrella and dollars, even though the burden is gradually being transferred to local powers. As you know, Israel recently launched a major offensive in Gaza and southern Lebanon. This allowed Israel to restore a temporary strategic balance in its favor. However, this victory was accompanied by a deterioration of its image on the international stage and a worsening of tensions with its neighbors. This situation undermines the American strategy, which is based on security of Israel, while relying on the Arab powers to contain Iranian influence in the region. Israel's growing involvement in southern Syria now places the country in a complex competition with Turkey for control of the Syrian theater and regional influence. This further complicates the task for the United States, which must juggle the sometimes conflicting interests of its allies. Since the outbreak of the war in Gaza, the process of normalizing relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia has been suspended. Riyadh refuses to move forward as long as the conflict continues and the Palestinian issue remains unresolved. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu makes any resolution of the crisis conditional on the elimination of Hamas and the long-term securing or even occupation of Gaza. In the face of this deadlock, Washington is now encouraging Saudi Arabia to take an active role in handling the Palestinian issue. The kingdom had tried to avoid this responsibility, but the Palestinian issue is still the main barrier to lasting peace and normalizing relations between Israel and Riyadh. The various issues are lasting peace and the normalization of relations between Israel and Riyadh. American administrations have all failed to impose a two-state solution, and Donald Trump is now counting on Saudi involvement to break the deadlock. This strategy, which consists of delegating the resolution of a local dispute to regional powers, is reminiscent of the approach adopted by Donald Trump in Europe between Ukraine and Russia. The gamble, therefore, remains risky. Saudi society and Arab public opinion are deeply attached to the Palestinian cause, and any normalization with Israel without concrete progress on this issue will be seen as a betrayal. We have also seen that Israel might seek to take advantage of its military successes to negotiate a new regional security architecture, expand its strategic depth, or even establish buffer zones in southern Lebanon, in Syria, or occupy Gaza and the West Bank. This maximalist scenario, favored by the Netanyahu government, would force Washington even more to find difficult compromises with Turkey and Saudi Arabia. On the other hand, Israel's room for maneuver also remains limited. A stalemate in Gaza, a resumption of hostilities in Lebanon or Syria, or the outbreak of a new front in the West Bank could weaken the Israeli position and threaten the regional balance that Washington is striving to build. Trump is therefore forcing the hand of regional powers to resolve their disputes, but Israel remains the central pillar of American strategy. Because Turkey also occupies a central place today in the reshaping of the Middle East. Thanks to its military successes in Syria and Libya, Ankara has managed to establish itself as a key player, capable of influencing both local dynamics and regional balances. Its strategy relies on a combination of direct military interventions, support for armed groups like HTS in northern Syria, and active diplomacy that allows it to engage in dialogue with Moscow and Tehran as well as with Washington. This presence on the ground gives it the ability not only to cause disruption, but also to mediate, which it uses to defend its interests and secure a leading role in any discussion about the future of Syria. Ankara does not hesitate to take advantage of rivalries between Arab powers to strengthen its position. After several years of tensions, Turkey and Saudi Arabia have begun a pragmatic rapprochement motivated by the need to contain Iranian influence and preserve regional stability. At the same time, Ankara maintains a dialogue with Israel despite ongoing differences over the Palestinian issue in Syria. Similarly, Turkey continues to cooperate with the United States on managing the situation in Syria and securing the borders. By occupying the ground and engaging in dialogue with all the actors, Erdogan offers the Americans a form of power delegation, which fits perfectly with the situation. This is a burden-sharing strategy that has been adopted for a decade and that Trump is accelerating. However, Turkey is not the only actor reshaping the regional balance. The expansion of BRICS Plus in 2024, with the integration of Iran, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates, is intensifying the situation. Competition for control of energy resources and strategic routes. Iran remains a key player thanks to its Shiite networks and its influence over oil flows from the Gulf. The Emirates are relying on their financial power and proactive diplomacy. Egypt, with its control of the Suez Canal, remains a vital transit point for global trade. The United States is therefore striving to reassure its partners, especially Egypt and the Emirates, by increasing security guarantees and economic agreements. In order to prevent these powers from feeling marginalized in the new regional game, the Middle East is thus fully part of the global dynamic of multipolarity. Alliances there are shifting, ambitions are often competing, and cooperation, although possible, remains fragile. Each player seeks to maximize their interests while avoiding isolation or direct confrontation. While the United States hopes to delegate part of the regional burden, the diversity of players, the divergence of interests, and the persistence of conflicts make any unified solution difficult to achieve. Three main scenarios then emerge. First, a strengthening of Saudi leadership supported by Washington, which would allow for the gradual stabilization of Syria and Lebanon and pave the way for normalization with Israel, provided the Palestinian issue is resolved. Finally, a strong comeback by Iran, capable of reviving its regional networks and fueling new asymmetric conflicts, or increased fragmentation with a dominant Turkey in Syria, an isolated Israel locked in a logic of permanent confrontation, and a Saudi Arabia forced to scale back its ambitions. The reality will probably be a mix of these scenarios. Iran, although weakened, has already proven its ability to adapt. Saudi Arabia, despite its ambitions, remains limited by its internal divisions and its military capabilities. Groups like Hamas, the Houthis, or Hezbollah continue to show unexpected resistance to containment strategies. Finally, the American stance remains fluctuating, depending both on the willingness to stay involved and the need to rationalize its resources. The American gamble on a Turkey-Saudi Arabia-Israel triangle is not without risk. Never has American influence seemed so cautious, but never has it appeared so vulnerable in this rapidly changing region. Thanks again to Incogni for sponsoring this video. You can get up to 60 off your subscription by using the link in the description or with the code TerraBellum. Now, I'd like to hear your opinion. Does the American plan to create a new order in the East show promise, or is it a sign of declining U.S. influence? If you're a local or familiar with the country, your opinion would be valuable. As for me, I'm just doing my job as an analyst, and even though I've traveled and know many countries, there's always more to learn. Let me remind you of the simple actions. Give a like, share this video to shine in society on your networks. It helps us a lot because we depend only on you. Our videos keep getting restricted just for mentioning words like war, such as in those about India or Israel and Syria. Thank you to the YouTube members who help fund this channel. By the way, I'm announcing that we're going to make the review accessible to a certain level of members on YouTube. You'll be informed accordingly when it happens, and you can already support us if you wish. The funds are reinvested in software licenses, videos, equipment, etc. Thanks for your loyalty. This was Quentin for TerraBellum. See you next time.